Gardening. It boosts our mood, our mental well-being, our physical health. It feeds us, brings us peace and joy, draws whole communities together. No matter if you're a sophisticated horticulturalist, a flower adorer, or just starting to get green-fingered. No matter if your plants live in a pot or your garden blooms in full. No matter if you like to work with your hands or look for digital inspiration. No matter what season or stage of life, every bit of green planted helps us breathe a little easier and moves us closer to a better, more sustainable future. And we want the whole world to feel it. There are no rules. All it takes to garden is the passion to do so. Realize your gardening dreams. Gardena.
This is the Premier Garden Show. And here is your host, Anthony Faulkner.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Premier Garden Show. A first for the Premier Garden Show. I listen to this podcast a lot. This guy has had on lots of top gardeners, even some, I suppose, of my own guests have been on his platform. This is episode 87, and Ross from the Plant Pod, I'm glad to say, is joining me this week. Welcome on to the Premier Garden Show, Ross.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. As we were just saying before coming on air, I listen to your podcasts as well, and I think they're great.
Yes, it's kind of like, it's really the first year I've kind of really put a lot of detail into it, so I'm really starting to kind of expand it on and kind of try to grow it a bit more, and maybe kind of next season I can kind of grow. But as I said, tuning into your podcast helps, I suppose, myself to kind of, develop myself going forward. So look, first off, could you just basically tell my listeners and viewers a little bit about you and your history and what is your passion with gardening?
Yeah, so for me, I started in horticulture late. I came into it when I was 30. I've just turned 40 a couple of weeks back. So I've had my 10 years within the industry now. And I started off in a garden centre in the West Midlands called Webb's Garden Centres, which is a really well-known garden centre, not just in the Midlands but in the UK. You get your coaches and buses coming and days out for family groups, and they do so much. Great garden centre, great company. And I worked with them in, I was doing warehousing and sending plants out over the e-commerce, with the e-commerce site. And then I managed to move to their nursery. And when I went to the nursery, I found out I loved it so much, I wanted to do an apprenticeship. So I managed to get on an apprenticeship with Pershore College. Went through that and then decided, you know what, I actually like education and I like learning. Even though when I was younger, I left school without no qualifications. And now I'm doing a degree at Pershore College in sustainable horticulture and agriculture technology.
Yeah, you kind of have the same really as myself. I kind of left school kind of the same kind of way. And I suppose even schools, I suppose back in my day, I don't know. They're kind of slowly moving into it. It's kind of now on the, agenda for some of the schools to kind of have their students kind of study horticulture and that, but when I was growing up, it just wasn't something that was kind of available. Making me feel old. Like I started in 2016. You know what I mean? Myself, but I kind of been working with other people since 1999. So, I'm kind of going through different stages like landscape, and I've been through that. Now I'm kind of more focused on garden design, and now, as I said, trying to do a bit of podcast and kind of, I suppose, it helps the mind. And Ross, I suppose in your early days when you started off, was there anyone that you kind of looked to for inspiration?
Yeah, so for me, and I mean, I've said it before, but I'll say it again. The person who taught me everything I needed to get that fundamental level was my manager in the nursery, Mike Rutter. And without him, I wouldn't be where I am now. He gave me the chance to go to the nursery. He showed me what had to be done. He taught me about plants. He gave me the student handbook to horticulture. You know, when my apprenticeship was happening, I could turn to him no matter what and always ask him questions, and I'd get the answer there and then. So I know some people would like pick celebrities or famous horticulturists to look up to, but for me, genuinely, was Mike Rutter, who bent over backwards for me and taught me the fundamentals of horticulture to carry on my journey to where I am now.
Yeah, and like it's some people do kind of say, you know, people they kind of follow on TV or stuff like that, or people designers, but a lot of people, even family members, kind of are the reason why they kind of, you know, become and I suppose even myself in my early days, I had no kind of interest in gardening, and you know, when you're looking for work and you're young, you kind of take a chance, and
Yeah.
it's only after a while I kind of realized, because my father and my uncles would have been big kind of keen gardeners, but I wouldn't have been. But
Yeah.
it's only when a guy gave me a chance back in 1999 that I kind of realized, whoa, I kind of have that passion, you know, the same as my
Yeah.
father, the same as my uncles, and there's always one person. The lad that gave me the start is no longer with me. He died young, but he, you know what I mean. He is always one that I would always think of, you know, for inspiration, and I kind
Yeah.
of owe him my start. So we all kind of have that person that kind of kicked us into where we go.
You
Um,
know, in a million years, I would never have thought I would be here now, working in horticulture, enjoying being out in the outdoors, hands in dirt, in all weathers, getting wet. You know, always coming home with grubby hands because I don't like wearing gloves, and getting told off by my partner for putting handprints on the doors and the walls. But I never thought in a million years this is where I'd be now. And if I could do my time again, I'd do exactly the same, but I'd start earlier.
yeah, you're the same as me. Even though I'm kind of doing a lot of garden design, I still haven't been able to step away from the physical part.
Yeah,
Like even before I came online, I literally was scrubbing my nails. Really, I
yeah,
don't like to wear gloves. I'm the same as you. It just doesn't feel right. You know, having gloves on, I just love to get the soil. And then you just, as you said, you're kind of coming in the door and you're kind of being careful and you're trying to scrub your hands clean. But
yeah,
look, I think it's not a bad habit to have. And then your podcast channel, the Plant Pod.
yeah.
How did that come about, and when did that kind of start for you?
So, being on the nursery, I'd always have headphones in, and everyone thought I was listening to music, but I wasn't. I was listening to podcasts, and I was listening to a lot of horticulture podcasts. And I thought to myself, I'd like to do this. I'd like to start a podcast, not for monetary gain. Let me just say that it
Same
was
as me.
to speak to people, to understand other people's journeys, and to find out more about people and see who's inspiring within the industry. So I went to the owner of Webs and I said, I've got an idea for a podcast. I think it'll work. I think we can do it. He said to me, go and speak to marketing. So I went and spoke to marketing. Long story short, they didn't want to do it in the end. They thought it would be, I wouldn't say too much hassle, but too much work to do. So because I'd already contacted a few people to come on, I thought, you know what, I'm just going to try it myself. And that's what I did. I brought a couple of microphones off Amazon, downloaded an app on my laptop, and started recording. And if you listen to my first couple of episodes, the audio quality isn't that good. probably the first 2-3 episodes, it's really terrible. But I didn't know what I was doing. Where if you listen to my latest season and even last season, the audio quality is 100 times better.
Yeah, you're kind of gone down the same path as myself. Season 1 was like a handful of episodes with me just rambling on.
Yeah.
Season 2, I had the odd guests, and I was so busy and I didn't know what I was doing either. And then season 3, I started off doing audio, and it was garden designer Peter Dunnigan from Ireland that I had on. And then I had someone else on after him that literally said to me, a kind of a landscaping company up in Dublin in Ireland, said to me, would you not consider doing video? And I said, not a chance. I said, I get away with a lot when you're doing audio. It doesn't matter. So then I kind of said, I'll give it a go and we'll see where it goes. And then I kind of didn't know what to do. And then I said, how do I make it? So I just started this mad background that you see that I don't know what it's about. But I had Debbie Holland on there a few weeks ago, and she sent me a signed cover of Modern Gardens, because I do kind of follow that. So it is great to have kind of guests on, because it really, you can only talk yourself so much.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and it's great to reach out to other guests and other people in backgrounds, and
finding out their background and what they do and what inspired them.
Yeah, and it's great because and most of the people you ask are grateful and come on, and you will get the odd person that doesn't reply or doesn't want to come on. But look, that's the thing. But I'm delighted with season 3 that like every week I've had a guest lined up.
Yeah.
And as I said, I'm kind of following, like, you're probably a bit ahead of me, but I'm following like the likes of you.
Thank you.
Look at your podcast and go, oh, look what he's doing, and and all that. So it is great. And what is the name? What's the reason behind the Plant Pod? Is it just?
It was just I wanted a name with plants, and obviously it's a podcast. And then I was just sat there and I was like, oh, the Plant Pod. And when it just clicks, and I was like, yeah, that sounds like a good name. So I went online, double checked, and I didn't find anything. But I will say this, and I know people have said it. There is another Plant Pod out there, but it's in Australia, and they haven't released episodes for 4 years. So I'm owning this in England.
Yeah, some people would be saying to me, my podcast name is nice, and I'd be like, there's a reason behind it, because I'm from Tipperary, which is called the Premier County. So that was, but most people wouldn't have known that because they were just, you know what I mean. But as yourself, like you kind of start off with a name, and you just don't want to change it then. And so I kind of, it was just a kind of starting off, picking a name. And then, as I said, it just sticks with you, and then you just can't really come away from it.
Yeah, that's it. Once you've got it, it's there.
Yeah. You, I suppose, have brought lots of guests, I suppose, onto your podcast. And how important is it, I suppose, to get a kind of at the perfect mix of guests?
It's really important, because if you have the same guests over and over again, people are going to get bored. And I don't mean the same person, but I mean within the same type of their sector in the industry. You want to keep it fresh and keep it new. So, like, my first guest was Boyd Douglas Davis, who, in the horticulture world, I don't know about in Ireland, but in the UK, he is phenomenal. And he does so much for the industry. So to have him on as the first guest, I believe, really pushed the Plant Pod straight away. And, I had nothing. There weren't no episodes out. I asked him to come on. He kindly accepted, and that for me was it was inspirational for me that someone would give me their time, especially in the caliber that he is. But I also wanted to have guests on who people would want to know their stories. So, like Boyd, my second episode was Kyle Ross, who was he was working for Wyvale Nurseries at the time. He's now up in Scotland at a tree nursery, but I can't remember the name of it. And he's won all sorts of awards. We've had Molly Higginson on, who's the co-founder of the YPHA, the Young People in Horticulture Association, which is for young people under the age of 35, and they do so much for the young generation coming into the industry. And, the YPHA, I can't push it enough. But then Lee Connolly, Lee, you've had him as well, the skinny jean gardener.
My next question.
How inspirational is Lee Connolly? The amount of stuff he does for children's gardening is unbelievable. Michael Perry pushes horticulture to the forefront. Laura MacArthur, inspirational, RHS student. She's on the RHS bursaries committee. She's a lecturer at Pershall College. She's got literally everything under her belt.
Yeah, you've literally three of, and Michael and Lee were literally two guests that I enjoyed immensely. And even after I recorded the podcast, there were straight away, if you need any advice or anything, going forward, just send us an email. And that's what I said to you. My next guest was the Skinny Jean Gardener.
Yeah.
You've had him on a few times.
Yeah.
I'm hoping I haven't frightened him off, and he will kind of come back on again. But he is such a nice person.
He's an inspiration to this industry. The amount of work he puts in to try and get horticulture on the curriculum, to push horticulture to children, the information and educational videos that he puts out is just phenomenal. There's nobody like him in the industry. He's one of a kind.
Yeah, as I said, I think he's working on a new show, and I kind of said, he's the old magic, and I think he's bringing the fun side.
Yeah.
Like, he's not like some children, like sitting in front of a book and all that. He's putting it into their minds in the right way, in a fun manner. So he is, do you know what I mean? He's an absolutely, like, even when I was researching and looking into it, like, he's doing so much. I even said to him, like, if we had someone over in Ireland like you to kind of do what you're doing, it would be immense.
We need more Lee Connollys in this world to make horticulture great again, not just for the adults, but for the children.
Yeah, and as I said, Michael is another one that is, so much down to earth, and so, you get that. Even being on recording with him, I even from here, I could feel, what he's like.
So I'd never met Michael, and then I was at Glee last year, and I bumped into him, shook his hand, and said, "Oh, any chance I can have 10-15 minutes with you for the podcast?" Yeah, sure, not a problem. So, and he came on the podcast, and we recorded it while we was at Glee. He's another person who's an inspiration to the industry. In February, I hosted a conference at Pershall College, and I asked Michael to come and be like the star guest, the final guest to talk. Yeah, no problem. And he turned up. He engaged with the students, everybody there. Everybody loved him, which I was glad about. A few old work colleagues who came fell in love with him, as he does look like a supermodel.
Yeah, I kind of, like, when I was listing off at the start of it, I listed off what he absolutely does.
Yeah.
He does a lot.
He does.
You know what I mean? He's doing so much, and he does look like, that kind of supermodel, and as I said, I'd say he could sell ice to the Eskimos, I'd say.
Yeah. I've styled my beard because of him. No. He is, honestly, he's an inspiration. The stuff that he does. I mean, he's in a different country every week. I'm so jealous of him. I really, in a good way, not in a bad way. He's in a different country every week. He's on QVC. His plant show that he did, his plant catwalk, was absolutely amazing. I don't know if you've seen that.
No.
Yeah, he did a plant catwalk that was, honestly, when I was watching the videos, it was fantastic. I cannot speak highly of enough of him. He's so good for this industry.
Yeah, and I suppose, is there, going back to even what you're on about in kids and that, what would you think you would like to see more when it comes to educating?
Okay. So we need to get horticulture on the curriculum. We need to show children where food comes from. So my day job, I work at an alternative education provision, which is for special educational needs students, or students with disabilities, or just students who don't thrive in mainstream school. And we are on an 8-acre farm, and we use horticulture as a way of a learning tool. Not just horticulture, there's animal care, there's woodwork, but horticulture's a big focus there. And we grow our own fruit and veg. We've got an orchard with 500 trees in. We make apple juice. We've got a cut flower business, but we get the children involved the whole way from start to finish, sowing the seeds to picking the fruit or the veg and growing it. And cooking it in the kitchen and then eating it. Now, students come and they see an egg with poo on and they won't eat it because it's got poo on. That's because they're not taught where their food comes from. It's in a supermarket and it's in bags. So, as in like tomatoes, they go to a supermarket, they see a punnet of tomatoes, that's where they buy it from. They don't understand that tomato came from a tiny seed that was planted and nurtured and came up, watered and looked after, and then you get to pick the fruit off it and enjoy it. And I believe we need more horticulture in the curriculum to do that, to show people show kids where their food's coming from and teach them about farming. And that we don't need to do a whole lesson on horticulture. And I've spoke to other people about this. We could interact it into maths, where we could do, if you've got 4 carrots and you sell 3 carrots for X amount of money. Do you know what I mean? And then also with eating, cookery classes, kitchen gardens. Every school should have a garden where they're able to pick their fruit and veg from and go into the kitchen and cook with it. And then even just a nice space, a pollinator garden, get some salvia in there, get some echinacea in there, get some nice bedding plants, let the smells come through. Petunia, pansy, begonia, let all them smells come through and let the kids sit there and enjoy it and teach them about where they come from.
Yeah, so even over in Ireland, it's only slowly that we're kind of, getting there. What I do say about England, more than what I say about Ireland, is England, anytime I've been over there, no matter what part of England I go to, you see a community garden. You don't see many of them over here.
It's such a shame.
Yeah, my even early memories of going over to visit relations in England when I was young, and you'd be going on a train or something, that you'd spot I like community gardens, and everyone is in, like, there's one literally down the road from it, and it was started from nothing. The girl has built it up to be with chickens, and they've new pizza oven that they built, and she literally built it up from the ground up. And it's the only kind of community vibe garden that I kind of know. In my own town, we just don't have one. I've been saying it for years that we should have one, but as I said, sometimes you're fighting against a brick wall when it comes to it, and there's only so much you can do. So I suppose then, apart from gardening and apart from all you do with horticulture, what do you like to do when you're not? Now, I've asked a few people this question, and they'll always just say, I just don't switch off from gardening. Like myself, like in days off, I'm visiting garden centres and people go mad and say, "Oh,
Yeah.
so
So
what?"
I do like to do that. I do like to go around garden centres and have a look. However, I love TV shows and movies, and I will sit and watch movie after movie if I've got a free weekend and I just want to be boring and do nothing. And give me a good TV show, like the new Dexter. Oh, I was so ready for that. I binge watched the whole of the other seasons, and I think I did all, is it 9 seasons in like 3 weeks, and I just binge watched it every day because I had nothing else to do. And I know it sounds lazy, I know it does, but sometimes when you need to switch off, you just need a cup of tea and a good TV show and just chill out and watch it.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same as you. The problem we have now with kind of Netflix and that is they don't kind of give you an episode this week and you have to wait till next week. They
Yeah.
throw 8 episodes in front of you and you sit down, you watch the first episode or whatever you're watching, and next minute you're going, I'll only watch one. And then you go, right, I'll hit the next one. And before
Yeah.
it's, you've watched the whole season and you're like, oh, here now, do I have to wait another year now for the next season of this? Like,
Yeah.
whereas in the older days, I suppose we kind of would have got a TV program or a series on the telly and we would have watched, but we would have had no other choice but wait
Weekly.
until the next week to see it. But now we're kind of not that way. It's now been, so, I'm the same as you. I'd sit down and I'd put on Netflix or something like that and I'd watch something. But then before I know it, it could be 7 hours and I'm
Yeah.
like, where is that 7 hours gone? Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Obviously, when I'm in uni as well, and I start back at uni at the end of this month. When I'm in uni, I do a lot of reading, as much as I can, to do with the subjects that I'm doing at like my modules. And this year I've got a dissertation, so I know I'm going to be doing a lot of reading for that. But obviously, when I haven't got uni from like June to now, and I just get home and I can just chill, either chill in the garden, put something on, or just lie on the sofa and just have a lazy day. That's the best thing for me, and I just get to unwind and let not think about my head just clears, if that makes sense.
yeah. And as I said, there's a lot of even gardening programs. There's a lot of gardening programs on UK. We just don't have
Yeah,
an Irish gardening program, so we're kind of still kind of miles like gardeners. What we just don't have. And you had someone on your podcast a while ago that would probably be my biggest fan, and the only reason is because he would be the person I would have saw on television when I was growing up, and that was Alan Titchmarsh.
yeah. So yeah, Alan
What's that
is
man? I've asked a few people that I've had on the podcast that have met him, and I've never, he's so down to earth. He
yeah,
makes time for everyone. He
yeah.
doesn't ignore anyone. He's not like kind of a big, star that like ignores. So is Alan really like what comes across on television to me? He seems like a genuine, down to earth type of a guy.
Alan is a great guy, and let me tell you a little funny story. So, in 2024, I won the one of the Colgrave Seabrook Foundation scholarships, and the Colgrave Seabrook Foundation is a foundation that helps students within the horticulture industry, and Alan is their patriarch. And they was having their 25-year anniversary at Bull Colgrave. So I went down there, I was invited down there, loving it, meeting loads of people, loads of students, and we got to meet Alan. My first words to Alan upon meeting him were, "My mom loves you." How to embarrass yourself straight away. And he looked at me, he smiled and went, "Good, nice to meet you." Right, but after that, I managed to have a little chat with him, and then I said to him, "Would you come on the podcast?" And happy to do it. And I was going back and forth. I mean, he was writing a new book, so I didn't want to bother him too much. Then I was at RHS Malvern, and I bumped into him, and I just said, Alan, any chance I can have 10 minutes with you? No problem at all. Leave your number with the girls there, and I'll let you know. And I walked away. I thought, I'm not going to push it. I got a text message that said, Alan's really busy, but he'll see you in his lunch break. Can you be here for 1 o'clock? And he saw me in his lunch break. What does that tell you? But he doesn't have to speak to me. I'm not nobody to him. The man is so nice, and I'm not just saying it. He's so nice, so friendly. It kind of takes you back that how nice he is, because you don't expect it. Not that you don't expect it, but I didn't expect him to be so courteous towards me. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No,
I've got nothing but good stuff to say about him.
No, we wouldn't have had programs growing up on television, so I would have been grown up watching Ground Force, where that's where I kind of first and then I absolutely love Your Garden. If there was a if I could binge anything, I every week that it was on ITV, I'd literally be glued to it. And even by that kind of a program, how he goes and deals with the people that he deals with, and even there, like, I don't know, was it last year he had a new series out where he was like with dogs. That kind of threw me a little bit. I was going to say, whoa, he's a man that talks about gardens. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
He, as I said, from looking at him on television, he comes across, and as I said, from talking to anyone that knows him that I've had on over in England, there's not, it's always the same thing. Public, when he's in shows, he'll chat to everyone. He doesn't ignore anyone.
No, he doesn't, and he gives you the time of day. How you see him on TV is how he is in real life.
Yeah.
Honestly, 10 out of 10.
Yeah, as I said, he would be, as I said, that's because we would have had no gardening programs, and in the early days, BBC would have been Ground Force, and that's what we would have been grown up with.
That's what I remember.
Yeah, I used to just be watching it, and and then he's I don't know who I had on there a while ago, and they work with him on his is it that weekend gardening program, or he has on, like, but as I said, everyone has such nice kind of words about it. So then I suppose you're taking time out college and finishing up. What is next for you, and what is next for the Plant Pod?
Yeah, so for the Plant Pod, I'm gonna put it to rest for a couple of months, and come back with season 4. Only because this being my last year of uni, I say put it to rest. I know I'm gonna do 1 or 2 more episodes. I've already got them planned, but I need to focus on uni, my dissertation, and getting through that. I'm starting. Well, I'm getting married in October, and I'm starting a new job once I'm back from my honeymoon, where I'm going into bedding plant production, at a local nursery. So I'm moving away from the educational side of it, kind of. Only because I love nursery production, and that's where I wanted to go back into, and an amazing opportunity's come up. And, I was offered the job and I accepted it. But I'm still going to do stuff with the farm where I'm at now, Bonterre, CIC. I'm still going to try and help out there as much as I can, because the work they do for children is amazing. But yeah, and then hopefully come back with another season of the Plant Pod and keep going and just ride it until the wheels fall off, I suppose.
Yeah, season 4. So I'm season 4 next year. So we're kind of the same.
But you're prolific, because you put out episode after episode every single week. I think this is the most I've ever done in a season, which will be about 8, 9. But I do want to do weekly episodes. It's just I haven't got the time. to do it.
Yeah, I kind of like, it's not that I wouldn't say hassle people. You know, you just
Yeah,
go through Instagram, you go through all these,
yeah,
you just see all the gardening people, and you just say, right, I'll ask them. And I'm being, blessed that I've had, guests where I've lined up where I can go, right, that kind of way.
yeah,
And I'm blessed. I think it's nearly over 30 guests, like,
yeah.
whereas last season, I probably had 3, you know, like, it's so great. It's such a great feeling to do a
It's the
podcast.
greatest industry to work in because everybody is so nice and so giving with their time.
Yeah. And before I let you go there, finally, while I was on about it, I had Garrett K. Wilson on,
Yeah,
and I would be blown away. He's had more awards at Chelsea than, I've had dinners cooked
yeah,
for me. But had him on the podcast, and I said to him I was never at Chelsea, and I said it was a dream for me to kind of go over to Chelsea, and how I've never met the man. We've literally had a podcast chat, and his first words were, "Why don't you come over and work on building a garden with us at Chelsea?"
brilliant.
That, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
He literally just had me. He said, "Look, I'll organise it. You can work for us on the garden, one of our gardens at Chelsea next year, and hang out with us. I'll sort everything out." And like, that's what you're getting from having some of these guests
yeah.
come on. Like, you don't know them, and they're willing to kind of, go out of their way. Um, so, how many episodes have you planned before you finish?
I kind of don't plan them if that makes sense. So I just think, right, I look at who I want to get on for the season. I think, oh, so like the return of Lee Connolly. Lee was my first guest on this season because he was doing his school tour where he was going around the country and meeting 10,000 children. And so I wanted to bring him back on to talk about that. But like, I'd look at some people and I say, "Oh, that'll be a great guest," or "She'll be a great guest," or "He'll be a great guest." And then I throw out a few emails. And then when I got 4 or 5 of them, I think, okay, I'll start. So then I start, try and record them, and then I think, oh, I'll do 3 or 4 more, and then that's how it happens. And some of them don't come to fruition. Some stuff's my fault where I mean, me and you, we've had to go back and forth and change a couple of times because life gets in the way,
Hmm.
but that's how I try and do it. And I don't plan it, but I'd love to, once uni's out the way, is do a weekly episode. That's how I want to see it going.
Well, hopefully I can continue my weekly episodes. And even though I will finish like yourself, I still think that over the winter I'll still kind of do the odd one.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And I'm grateful that I have a chap that I kind of had on my podcast, and he works in a garden centre up the country, and like, I have him on every month doing. Kieran Burke comes on every month and does, you know, and that's another kind of avenue that I didn't expect. I literally had him as a guest. I asked him would he be up to doing a monthly podcast because he's so familiar with the planting and what's coming in
yeah,
and out of garden centres. And he's like being like a little kind of co-host. I had him at Bloom, the garden festival. You probably have your switch off, or don't know, do you have your switch off moment where you're finishing? Like, I'm like, I wonder when will I finish season 3? Will I
yeah.
do
I,
2 more? Will I finish it in October? Will I finish it in, when do I
yeah, so
stop it?
so for me, it was, I knew when I started recording he was going to get to September, and I thought I don't want to take to with the wedding coming up, and then with uni restarting. So I know where that switch off point is for myself. I know that I just wanted to go right. That's it. That's the last episode, and I actually recorded the last episode of the podcast today, which will go out on the 8th of September.
Um, yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. And I'm also looking forward to being asked onto season 4.
Oh, definitely. I'll tell you what. I'll make you a deal here and now, so all the listeners know. When season 4 is in the works, which will be around March, April, I'll be planning it. you will be the first guest, if you don't mind.
It would be an absolute honour.
And we'll get you on
Come
to the
on,
Plant Pod.
and be questioned about my
Yeah.
life.
I will interrogate you more than the police.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, I can't really do a podcast and ask myself questions.
No, I've seen them. I've toyed with that before. I have toyed around with, could I do a podcast on my own where I like answer questions? But then I feel a bit not weird talking to myself, but yeah, a bit like, do I really want to just sit there and talk to myself? My son already thinks I'm crazy anyway, so you think I'm more crazy?
Yeah, I toyed with the whole idea of doing a kind of over the winter, recording a few podcasts over the winter of basically my kind of time on RT Super Garden and how I went on that and stuff like that. And I tied with the thing of kind of maybe doing a few recordings during when I've nothing to do, and then over the winter kind of release these kind of episodes that literally will give the viewers or listeners an insight. And then when I start season 4, maybe it kind of gives people a bit more of a idea of myself. But as I said, going from audio podcasts to video podcasts is still, it is, you kind of dread it, but at the moment, I'm not looking back, I'm just kind of going forward. So look, before I let you go, where can people find out more about your podcast and listen and find out and watch it?
So I've got a Facebook page which is at the Plant Pod, same as Instagram, the Plant Pod. The Instagram is _plant_pod, or just go on to www.theplantpod.co.uk, and everything's on there. The first page has got the podcast on. We've got links to social media, LinkedIn, Ross Dyke, ROSSDYKE. I'm on LinkedIn. If anyone ever wants to reach out or anything, please do. But the easiest way is theplantpod.co.uk.
And you can tune in on all the kind of major.
Yeah, so for the podcast, there's a page. The first page of the website has got like the latest 5 episodes on. Then you can get me on Spotify. I'm on Apple Podcasts. I was on Google Podcasts, but they ended it, didn't they?
Yeah.
iHeartRadio.
I was on that early days, and that's literally gone. And I know last night I kind of started tied with the idea of starting a kind of a web podcast web page.
Yeah.
And I kind of set one up last night, and I was looking at it, and they give you a list of what the links of all the kind of where you can get the podcast, and there were some of them coming up. I said, I didn't know my podcast was on that platform.
Yes, no. Funny enough, you saying that. When I was doing my website, I started searching stuff for the Plant Pod, and that happened. So there was websites that come up, but off the top of my head, I can't remember the names, but they come up, and my podcast was on there, and I was thinking, how did it get on here? It's crazy.
It is, as I said to you, because I knew I was set up with the Riverside, and I knew I was on Spotify, I knew I was on Apple, and I knew I was on one or two others. You know what I mean? But last night when I was kind of toying around with the web page, and this web page that I got up, and it was kind of putting up a few things into it, and it came up then links for your social media and stuff like that, and then it kind of came up a list of podcasts where you can get podcasts, and I was looking at it, I said, I never even heard these platforms, and even when I clicked on them, it brought me into the podcast with all the episodes, and I said, where did this come out? Like, is that, you know what I mean? Like, it is so crazy.
It is crazy how it can get out there.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I am at thing now, trying to, tie with the idea of a web page where people can kind of go on and get information and then go on to all the things. So look, Ross, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I know it's been a kind of a while to get on, but look, it was so worthwhile.
No, thank you. Honestly, I really appreciate your time. And if like I say, when season 4 comes out, if you're still happy to do it, I will have you as the first guest. I'd love to.
Yeah, as I said, best of luck in married life.
Yeah, ball and chain.
And best of luck with college. And I look forward to hearing your last episode of this season.
Thank you.
And I look forward to many more great episodes on the Plant Pod.
Thank you.
So everyone, that wraps up another guest on the Premier Garden Show. What a pleasure it was to have Ross. Ross is from another gardening podcast channel called the Plant Pod. Thanks so much, Ross, for jumping on to, I suppose, my podcast channel. And thanks again for the invite to be your first guest on your season for next year. And also thanks again for, I suppose, highlighting my podcast channel, the Premier Garden Show, on your website, the Plant Pod. So guys, do check out the Plant Pod on Spotify, Apple, on Instagram, all over the place. Do check out the Plant Pod. Give them a listen. They've had some fantastic guests on their podcast, on Ross's podcast channel. Some of his guests have been on my podcast channel, but there's also some guests that weren't. And hopefully in season 4 of the Premier Garden Show. That's it, guys. It is official. The Premier Garden Show is coming back for another season next year. The bad news is it is coming to an end. Season 3 is not far, I suppose, away from being finished. The good news is we have a few guests lined up still to come on to the Premier Garden Show, and then we will take a little bit of a break. I will be, I suppose, releasing a couple of podcasts over the winter while we take a break. I am currently working on my own podcast episode where I am going to do a few episodes to put up onto our podcast channel and on our social media pages about myself, how I started off in gardening and garden design, my journey from 2017 and not making it onto RT Super Garden to successfully making the final 5 in 2018 and then going on to win the Viewers' Choice Award in 2018. So that will be on over the winter to keep it going. And also I will do one or two, it depends, one or two highlight podcast episodes where we will go back through all the guests from this season. And so far I've had 30 guests coming on, now 31. Tonight was the 31st guest to come on to the Premier Garden Show. Last week we were pleased that we had Trevor from Ashbourne Paven be our 30th guest this season, and me and Trevor go back a long way. We know each other with a couple of years. Trevor was on the Premier Garden Show back in 2023, so I was delighted to that he said yes and jumped on. So I really hope you enjoyed my episode with Trevor from Ashbourne Paven. Trevor, I wish you all the best. I did spot your video, you and your wife's new venture into the world of saunas and massage stuff. I wish you all the best with that, and I also wish you all the best as you venture over to Tenerife to get married. I know you are officially married with a week or so. So I'm pleased to wish you all the best going forward to you, your lovely wife, and your kids. And also last week we had our monthly podcast episode. Yep, you were spoiled last week, guys. You had 2 episodes last week because at the start of each month we do have 2 podcast episodes. We have our normal guest on, and then we have our monthly podcast episode with Johnstown Garden Centre's very own Kieran Burke. He came on last week and gave us all the tips and what plants to look out for around this time in your garden centres. So, yes, we're coming to the end of season 3. And as I said, we have a couple of guests still lined up. Some of the guests that are literally lined up to finish up season 3, the likes of Rachel Bailey, Aid Sellers, Kate Mason, Lucy Wilcox, and a couple of more are still to come before we finish season 3 out. And also we probably will have 1 or 2 maybe more monthly podcasts with Kieran. So guys, stay tuned to the end of this episode and you will catch a clip of next week's guest. You won't want to miss this guest. I was very, very much looking forward to having her on the Premier Garden shows. So stay tuned for a clip of next week's episode straight after tonight's episode of the Premier Garden show. That's it for another week, guys. As I always say, keep your hands in the dirt and your heart in nature. Until the next time on the Premier Garden Show.
Thanks for listening to the Premier Garden Show, and we will see you in the next episode. Be sure to like, share and subscribe and join all our social media.
Yeah, my name is Kate Mason. I'm a garden designer. I'm based in the West Midlands in the UK, and I specialise in tropical plants. So I used to run my own swim school and I used to compete in Taekwondo. And I was lucky enough to win the World Championships in 2013. And about a week or 2 after I'd fought in the World Championships, I found out that I was pregnant with my son. I suffered then with postnatal depression because I basically lost the ability to train and compete. And through counselling, my counsellor suggested that I found a new hobby and I started gardening. And then I decided to go and train at Pershore College. And the rest is history, really. So it's kind of a background through mental health. Gardening has helped me to kind of sort my head out, I suppose. I got 13, 14 of our friends together, sent my mum away on a spa weekend, and we transformed her garden over the space of 3 days into an accessible, usable, beautiful space to help her get outside and encourage her to kind of be in nature a little bit more. And it was the most incredible experience. I loved organising people. I loved picking out all of the plants, sorting the designs out, and that was a solidifying kind of factor when I went through my mental health issues. When my counsellor said to me, "What do you want to do?" I'd already done this at that point, and I thought, you know what, I loved doing that. Let's explore it a little bit further. But that was the first thing that I ever did, yeah.